On December 6, 1969, approximately 300,000 people gathered at the Altamont Speedway in California for what was supposed to be a free concert celebrating peace, love, and music, the culminating moment of the 1960s counterculture movement. The lineup was extraordinary. Santana, Jefferson Airplane, the Flying Burrito Brothers, Crosby, Stills, Nash Young, and headlining the event, the Rolling Stones, the biggest rock band in the world. The concert was conceived as the West Coast's answer to Woodstock, which had taken place just 4 months earlier in August 1969. Woodstock had been celebrated as 3 days of peace and music, a utopian gathering that seemed to prove that counterculture's ideals could create a better world. Altamont was meant to capture that same magic. Instead, it became a nightmare. As the day progressed, violence erupted throughout the crowd. The Hells Angels motorcycle gang, hired as security in exchange for $500 worth of beer, brutally beat concertgoers. Fights broke out. People were stabbed. The music was repeatedly interrupted by chaos. And then, during the Rolling Stones set, as Mick Jagger sang Under My Thumb, an 18-year-old black man named Meredith Hunter was stabbed to death by a Hells Angel just feet from the stage, captured on film. 3 other people died that day from other causes. Altamont has been called the day the Sixties died, the moment when the peace and love dream of the counterculture violently collapsed. This is the story of December 6, 1969, when a free concert became a tragedy, and rock and roll lost its innocence. Part 1, the context, 1969, and the counterculture, the summer of love to the end of the decade. To understand Altamont, you must understand the context of 1969 and the late 1960s counterculture movement. The counterculture. By the late 1960s, a significant portion of young Americans had rejected mainstream society's values and embraced what became known as the counterculture. Core beliefs: peace and opposition to the Vietnam War, love, freedom, and communal living, rejection of materialism and conventional success, experimentation with drugs, particularly LSD and marijuana, rock music as a unifying force and form of rebellion, belief that their generation could create a better, more peaceful world. The music. Rock music was central to the counterculture. The Beatles, Rolling Stones, Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin music festivals as gatherings of the tribe. Lyrics about peace, love, consciousness expansion, music as a revolutionary force. Woodstock, August 1969. 4 months before Altamont, the Woodstock Music Art Fair took place in upstate New York. August 15, 1969. Woodstock's success. Approximately 400,000 people attended, far more than expected, 3 days of music featuring the biggest acts of the era, despite rain, mud, inadequate facilities, and overcrowding. The festival was largely peaceful, became a defining moment of the 1960s counterculture. 3 days of peace and music celebrated as proof that a generation could create an alternative, peaceful society. Woodstock created a mythology. Young people could gather in massive numbers, peacefully. Music could unite. The counterculture's ideals could work. A new age was dawning. By December 1969, that mythology was about to be tested and shattered. The Rolling Stones in 1969. The Rolling Stones were at the height of their powers, one of the biggest rock bands in the world, rivaling the Beatles, known for their rebellious image, sexual energy, and blues-based rock. Mick Jagger, charismatic frontman Keith Richards, legendary guitarist. 1969, U.S. Tour had been hugely successful. Recent album, Let It Bleed, featured darker themes than earlier work. The Stones cultivated a bad boy image, more dangerous than the Beatles, associated with drugs, sex, rebellion. Songs like Sympathy for the Devil played with dark imagery. They represented the edgier side of rock and roll, the free concert idea. The Rolling Stones' 1969 U.S. tour was coming to an end. The band wanted to do something special, a free concert to thank American fans inspired by Woodstock's success, a gesture of goodwill and practically to be filmed for a documentary movie. Initially, the concert was planned for San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, but permits fell through. Then Sears Point Raceway was considered, but also fell through due to financial logistical issues. Just 2 days before the scheduled December 6th date, the location was changed to Altamont Speedway, a stock car racing track about 50 miles east of San Francisco in the barren hills of California. This last-minute change was the first of many problems. Part 2, the planning, or lack thereof, Altamont Speedway. The venue was far from ideal. A dirt auto racing track in an isolated area. No infrastructure for a massive concert. No adequate parking, sanitation, or medical facilities. Surrounded by barren, dusty hills. December in California. Cold at night. The timeline. Because the location was finalized only 2 days before the concert. Almost no time to organize inadequate planning for crowd size, safety, facilities. Word spread rapidly that the Rolling Stones were playing a free concert. Tens of thousands began traveling to Altamont. The stage. The stage was built low to the ground, about 4 feet high, much lower than typical concert stages. This meant the performers were nearly at the same level as the crowd, easy for people to climb onto the stage. No barrier between performers and audience, so this would prove dangerous. Security, the fatal decision. For a crowd expected to be in the hundreds of thousands, proper security was essential. But the Rolling Stones made a decision that would have tragic consequences. They hired the Hells Angels motorcycle gang to provide security. The Hells Angels. The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club was and is an outlaw motorcycle gang with a reputation for violence. Founded in California in 1948 by 1969. Infamous for criminal activity, violence, and intimidation. Wore leather jackets with distinctive death head logo, rode Harley-Davidson motorcycles, operated outside the law. Why hire the Hells Angels? The decision was influenced by several factors. San Francisco. Hells Angels had a relationship with the Bay Area music scene. The Grateful Dead and other San Francisco bands had used Hells Angels as informal security at smaller events. At these smaller events, the Angels had been relatively well behaved. There was a romanticized view that the Angels were part of the counterculture. Cost. The Hells Angels were paid in beer, reportedly $500 worth. Much cheaper than professional security. Naivety and romanticism. The Stones and organizers believed the Angels would provide a cool vibe. They underestimated the Angels' capacity for violence. They assumed the peace and love spirit of the era would prevail. This was a catastrophic misjudgment. The Hells Angels were not trained security. They were a violent criminal organization. Giving them authority over a crowd of 300,000 people was asking for disaster. The crowd. As December 6th approached, word spread. The Rolling Stones were playing a free concert in the Bay Area open to everyone. Hundreds of thousands began making their way to Altamont. Mostly young people, teens to 20s, hippies, students, music fans, many on drugs, LSD, marijuana, amphetamines were common. Some came in peace and love. Others came looking for a party. Some came looking for trouble. By the morning of December 6th, an estimated 300,000 people had converged on Altamont Speedway. Part 3, December 6th, 1969. The day begins at morning. The crowd gathers. By morning, Altamont was already overwhelmed. 300,000 plus people in an area designed for maybe 10,000 inadequate parking cars, abandoned on highways and roads for miles. People walking miles to reach the venue, dust everywhere. The racing track was dirt. Cold, December morning in California hills. Long lines for inadequate bathrooms and water. The Hells Angels arrive. The Hells Angels positioned themselves directly in front of the stage. On the stage itself, armed with pool cues, waited pool balls in socks, knives in their fists, drinking heavily from the beer they'd been given, establishing dominance, early violence. Even before the music started, violence was breaking out. Hells Angels beat people who got too close to the stage fights in the crowd over space, drugs, or nothing at all. The Angels' motorcycles parked directly in front of the stage. Anyone who touched a bike was beaten. The atmosphere. Witnesses described the atmosphere as wrong from the start. Not the peace and love of Woodstock tension. Aggression. Fear. People packed too tightly. Dust and dirt everywhere. Bad vibes. The music begins. The concert was scheduled to start around noon with opening acts before the Rolling Stones headlined in the evening. Santana. Santana was one of the opening acts. They performed, but even during their set, violent incidents in the crowd, Hells Angels beating people. Band members noticed the bad atmosphere. Carlos Santana later said he felt dark energy and had a bad trip on mescaline during the performance. Jefferson Airplane. Jefferson Airplane was another major act scheduled before the Stones. During their set, violence escalated dramatically. Marty Balin knocked unconscious. Marty Balin, Jefferson Airplane's vocalist, saw a Hells Angel beating someone in the crowd near the stage. Balin jumped off stage to intervene and try to stop the violence. A Hells Angel punched Balin in the face, knocking him unconscious. The band had to stop playing. Balin was carried backstage. The situation was spiraling out of control. Paul Kantner, Jefferson Airplane guitarist, confronted the Hells Angels from the stage, telling the crowd about what happened. This nearly sparked a riot throughout the day. As the afternoon progressed, multiple violent incidents. Hells Angels beating concertgoers with pool cues, people trampled in the crowd, drug overdoses and bad trips, medical personnel overwhelmed, sense of chaos and danger growing. The Rolling Stones were scheduled to perform as darkness fell. Part 4. The Rolling Stones take the stage evening. As darkness fell, by the time the Rolling Stones were ready to perform, around 6 o'clock to 7 p.m., it was dark, December evening. The crowd had been waiting for hours. Tension was at a peak. Violence had been occurring all day. Medical emergencies throughout the venue. The Stones' entrance. The Rolling Stones arrived by helicopter and were briefed on the violence. They were urged to cancel, but decided to proceed. Mick Jagger was reportedly punched by a concertgoer as he made his way to the stage. The band was nervous, but felt canceling might cause a riot. The performance begins. The Stones began their set around sunset/early evening. From the first moments, it was chaotic. Sympathy for the Devil. The Stones started with Sympathy for the Devil, a song with dark lyrics about the devil witnessing historical atrocities. Almost immediately, fighting broke out in front of the stage. Hells Angels were beating people. The band had to stop playing multiple times. Mick Jagger pleaded with the crowd. "Brothers and sisters, come on now. That means everybody just cool out. Will you cool out, everybody?" But the violence continued. Under My Thumb. The murder of Meredith Hunter. As the Stones performed Under My Thumb, the tragedy occurred. Meredith Hunter. Meredith Hunter was an 18-year-old black man from Berkeley, California. He had come to Altamont with his girlfriend, Patty Bredehoff, who was white. What happened? The exact sequence of events has been debated, but here's what's known. According to witnesses and film footage, Meredith Hunter had been involved in scuffles with Hells Angels earlier, possibly due to racism. He was black with a white girlfriend. Possibly due to general aggression. During Under My Thumb, Hunter apparently pulled out a gun, a .22 caliber revolver. Witnesses say he may have been reacting to being attacked by Hells Angels. Hells Angel Alan Passaro saw the gun and attacked Hunter. Passaro stabbed Hunter multiple times, at least 5 stab wounds. Other Hells Angels joined in beating Hunter. Hunter died from his wounds. The entire incident was captured on film by documentary cameras filming the concert, or what became the documentary Gimme Shelter. The film shows the chaotic crowd, a flash of a gun, Hells Angels attacking Hunter falling, the violence happening just feet from the stage as the Stones played. The Rolling Stones on stage. From the stage, the Stones could see chaos, but not clearly what was happening. Mick Jagger stopped singing, briefly. The music became disjointed. Jagger tried again to calm the crowd. "Why are we fighting? We don't want to fight at all." But the band was mostly unaware that someone had just been murdered a few feet away. The concert continued. Incredibly, the concert continued. The Stones didn't know someone had died. They were afraid stopping would cause a full riot. They rushed through the rest of their set. The atmosphere was nightmarish. Ending. The Rolling Stones finished their set and immediately left by helicopter. Only later did they learn that multiple people had died. Part 5. The death toll, 4 dead. Meredith Hunter's murder was the most notorious death of Altamont, but 4 people died that day. 1. Meredith Hunter, 18. Stabbed to death by Hells Angel, Alan Passaro, died just feet from the stage during Under My Thumb. Death captured on film. 2-3. Mark Feiger and Richard Savlov. Both died in a hit-and-run accident in the parking area, run over by a car, possibly while sleeping in sleeping bags. Died from traumatic injuries. 4. Unnamed drowning victim, drowned in an irrigation canal near the venue. Exact circumstances unclear, possibly intoxicated or high. Fell into water. Additionally, hundreds injured, multiple people beaten by Hells Angels, drug overdoses, medical emergencies. Part 6. The aftermath, blame, trials, and the end of an era. Immediate aftermath. In the days and weeks following Altamont, public shock, news of the deaths, particularly Meredith Hunter's murder, shocked the nation. The counterculture was forced to confront that its ideals of peace and love had failed. The film, the Rolling Stones documentary Gimme Shelter, released in 1970, included footage of the violence and Meredith Hunter's death. The film became a historical document of the disaster. Blame. Who was responsible? The Rolling Stones, criticized for hiring the Hells Angels. For inadequate planning, for not canceling when violence erupted, for contributing to the chaotic atmosphere. Mick Jagger later said, "I'd rather have had the cops than the Hells Angels. We'll never use anyone like the Hells Angels again." The Hells Angels, obviously responsible for much of the violence, argued they were acting in self-defense, claimed the crowd was out of control and they were trying to maintain order. This was largely seen as a lie. Witnesses described unprovoked brutality. The organizers, criticized for last-minute venue change. Inadequate planning and infrastructure, underestimating the crowd size and potential for violence. The counterculture itself. Some argued the naivety and drug culture contributed to the chaos. The belief that peace and love would magically create a safe environment proved tragically wrong. The legal case. Alan Passaro, the Hells Angel who stabbed Meredith Hunter, was charged with murder. The trial. Passaro's defense argued self-defense. Hunter had pulled a gun. Passaro reacted to protect himself and others. The film footage showed Hunter with what appeared to be a gun. Witnesses testified both for and against Passaro. Verdict: Passaro was acquitted, found not guilty by reason of self-defense. The jury believed he was defending himself against an armed attacker. This verdict was controversial. Many felt it was unjust. Argued Passaro and other angels created the violent atmosphere that led to the confrontation. Questions about whether Hunter would have pulled a gun if he hadn't been attacked first. Passaro's later life. Died in 1985 from a drug overdose at age 36. Meredith Hunter's family, devastated by his death and the acquittal. Hunter's mother said her son went to a concert and was killed. The loss of an 18-year-old life. Part 7. The Day the Sixties Died. Cultural impact. Altamont has been called the day the 60s died. The symbolic end of the 1960s counterculture's idealism. Why? Woodstock, August 1969, represented peace, love, and music, the possibility of a better world, the counterculture's ideals, working hope. Altamont, December 1969, represented violence, chaos, and death, the failure of those ideals. The dark side of the counterculture disillusionment. Just 4 months separated these two events. The contrast was stark. The end of the 1960s. Altamont occurred in December 1969, literally at the end of the decade. The 1960s had been defined by optimism, rebellion, and idealism. By December 1969, that optimism was fading. The Vietnam War continued political assassinations. JFK 1963, MLK and RFK 1968. Had traumatized the nation. The counterculture was fragmenting. Altamont seemed to confirm that the dream was over. The Rolling Stones. For the Rolling Stones, Altamont was a stain on their legacy. They were blamed for the disaster. Their image as rebels had contributed to the chaos. They had to live with the knowledge that their concert led to deaths. The band rarely spoke about Altamont in detail afterward. It was clearly traumatic for them. The Hells Angels. The Hells Angels' reputation as violent criminals was confirmed. Any romanticized view of them as rebel heroes was shattered. The music festival. Altamont had a chilling effect on large-scale free concerts. Organizers became much more cautious. Security became professionalized. The era of massive, uncontrolled gatherings ended. Festivals continued, but with far more structure and oversight. Part 8. Comparisons and context. Woodstock versus Altamont. The comparison is inevitable. Similarities. Both large gatherings of young people. Both celebrating rock music and counterculture. Both had logistical challenges. Overcrowding. Inadequate facilities. Both in 1969. Differences? Woodstock, better organized, despite problems. Professional security and medical staff. 3 days allowed crowd to spread out. Rural location with more space. Generally peaceful atmosphere. Became a symbol of the counterculture's success. Altamont, last-minute organization Hells Angels. As security, one-day event. With everyone crammed in barren, inadequate location. Violent atmosphere from the start. Became a symbol of the counterculture's failure. What went wrong at Altamont? Multiple factors. Last-minute venue change, inadequate time to plan. Poor venue choice, Altamont Speedway was unsuitable. Hells Angels, a security catastrophic decision. Low stage, no barrier between performers and crowd. Drugs, widespread LSD, speed, and other drugs contributed to chaos. Crowd size 300. 000 plus people overwhelmed all infrastructure. Cultural naivety belief that peace and love would be enough. The Rolling Stones image, their bad boy reputation, attracted a more aggressive crowd than Woodstock. Could it have been prevented? Absolutely. Better planning, professional security, adequate facilities, and more time to organize could have prevented much of the tragedy. Meredith Hunter's death specifically harder to say. The combination of guns, drugs, violence, and the Hells Angels created a deadly situation. Part 9. Legacy and Lessons. What Altamont Taught. 1. Idealism isn't enough. The counterculture's belief that peace and love would naturally create a safe environment was proven tragically naive. Good intentions require practical planning and structure. 2. Security matters. Professional, trained security is essential for large gatherings. The Hells Angels disaster showed what happens when security is amateur and violent. 3. Planning saves lives. Adequate planning, infrastructure, and logistics are not establishment concerns. They're necessary to keep people safe. 4. Crowds are unpredictable. A crowd of 300,000 people can turn dangerous quickly, especially when drugs, alcohol, and poor conditions are involved. 5. The dark side of the counterculture. Altamont revealed that the counterculture wasn't all peace and love. It had a dark side: drugs, violence, and chaos. Cultural legacy. Altamont appears in countless books, documentaries, and analyses of the 1960s. Seen as a turning point, the moment the dream died. A cautionary tale about naivety and poor planning. The film Gimme Shelter. The documentary remains a powerful, disturbing record of what happened. The footage of Meredith Hunter's death is shocking even today. Music history. Altamont is studied in music history as one of rock's darkest moments. A contrast to Woodstock, the end of the festival era's innocence. Did the 60s really die at Altamont? The phrase is symbolic more than literal. The 1960s counterculture continued into the early 1970s, but Altamont marked a shift in consciousness. The optimism of the mid-1960s was replaced by disillusionment. The belief in easy revolution faded. In this sense, yes, something died at Altamont. Conclusion. On December 6, 1969, 300,000 people gathered at Altamont Speedway in California for a free concert headlined by the Rolling Stones. It was supposed to be a celebration of the West Coast's Woodstock. Instead, it became a nightmare. The Hells Angels, hired as security, brutally beat concertgoers. Violence erupted throughout the day. 4 people died, including 18-year-old Meredith Hunter, stabbed to death by a Hells Angel just feet from the stage during the Rolling Stones set. The murder was captured on film. Hundreds were injured. The concert became a symbol of the counterculture's failure. Altamont has been called the day the 60s died. Just 4 months after Woodstock's 3 days of peace and music, Altamont showed the dark side of the era: violence, chaos, and death. 4 people went to a concert and never came home. Meredith Hunter, 18, stabbed to death. Mark Feiger and Richard Savloff killed in a hit and run. An unnamed man drowned. Rest in peace to the 4 victims of Altamont. You went to a concert to celebrate music and youth. You died because of poor planning, violence, and a toxic combination of drugs, chaos, and bad decisions. To Meredith Hunter specifically, an 18-year-old with his whole life ahead, killed in front of thousands, captured on film, his death becoming a symbol. You deserved better. Your life mattered beyond being a symbol of a failed dream. Altamont reminds us, idealism without planning is dangerous. Violence can erupt even in peaceful movements. Security and organization matter. The counterculture's dream of peace and love was beautiful, but naive. Rock and roll has a dark side. December 6, 1969, the day a free concert became a tragedy. The day the 60s dream died. The day rock and roll lost its innocence. 4 dead, hundreds injured, a generation disillusioned. The end of an era. Never forgotten, always a warning.